Hello, everybody, and welcome to Paradise Games Friday Night Magic Standard Tournament. I am Alex, and I will be bringing you 3 rounds of Magic tonight. Like to go ahead and make a few quick announcements. We've got quite a bit of exciting news going on for the stream as we get into our first match here. You'll notice those sets of dice on camera right now in the corner of each player's mat. Those are some nice Die Hard dice, and they are a sponsor of the stream. They've been supporting us for since we've been started, so thank you to Die Hard Dice. And if you have been listening to me ramble about Die Hard Dice for however many months I've been doing it and haven't yet picked up a pair, or you're just in the market for a new pair, we will be giving away these 2 sets of dice that you see on screen, as well as some extras next week for just watching the stream. So if you're interested in winning some free stuff, if you tune into the stream, all during next week, we're going to be doing a bunch of giveaways. So you'll see a bunch of news about that on the Paradise Games Facebook, Paradise Twitter. I assume I'll be tweeting about that stuff as well. So if you aren't following the social medias, make sure you do so. But with that, it's enough advertising out of the way off the bat. Let's get into the game. Looks like we got Brad versus David. We have these decks labeled as Feasting, Troll King, and Black Hat. I'm going to go ahead and burst the bubble here. Feasting, Troll King is just the Jund Sacrifice deck. So David's playing Jund Sacrifice. It's a slightly outdated version, and I believe it is playing the namesake card Feasting Troll King there, which is not super common in most builds nowadays, but it's definitely a powerful card, synergizes very well with the deck, and can absolutely run things over. Over on Brad's side, it looks like this might be some sort of mono-black Sacrifice deck. There's a lot of Cauldron Familiars and Witch's Ovens floating around in Standard nowadays, so we'll see how this matchup ends up paying out. Notably, David lacking a cat, but he's got a nice goose start and a couple foods to start things off. Oh, I'm getting an update from production. Brad's deck is Orzhov, so it is black and white Sacrifice. So yeah, sure enough, there's a Godless Shrine there in Brad's hand. So here is Mayhem Devil. It's going to come down, then Gilded Goose will make a mana, and with that mana he'll just go ahead and cast another Gilded Goose, and with the Mayhem Devil trigger he'll get to shoot down the cat. Cauldron Familiar gone for now, but will certainly be coming back at a later date. Here's 3 mana, Murderous Rider. Swift End's going to take out Mayhem Devil, and now we'll see it send back over to David, presumably. He's got 5 mana. We'll see if he has anything he wants to do. Yeah, just asking. I'm not super sure what this particular build is trying to accomplish. I'm not certain what the White Splash is for, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. I see Gutter Bones, Castle Locked Away, and the usual culprits over on Brad's side, so we'll see. All right, we've got Corvold just coming down. Oh boy. So Corvold coming down here. This is a nice turn 4 Corvold. When it enters the battlefield, I assume that David's just going to go ahead and sacrifice that other food token he's got floating around there. Just going to go ahead and draw a card, put a counter on it, regardless of what he sacrifices. Looks like he might be thinking about the goose going away. That makes sense to me, I think. We've still got 1 goose. We still got 1 food. The ability to do some powerful things with that. Looks like we're going to be seeing the goose make 1 mana. He's going to draw a card. We'll see what he wants to do with the mana. Well, I'm not certain what card that is. I can't quite get a good look at it from here. It looks like it must just be another Gilded Goose. So just go ahead and cycling through the geese. And of course, it's a pretty attractive proposition to be doing all of this whenever you have a Corvold in play. So we now have a 6-power Corvold, and well, hopefully Brad has another Murderous End, or another Swift End, because if he doesn't, he's going to be dead real fast. And yeah, here's the Priest of the Forgotten Gods. So he's going to go ahead and sacrifice those things, and then David will sacrifice his Gilded Goose. He's going to draw a card, but another counter on Corvold. Lose 2 life. Brad will draw a card, make a couple mana. See if he can find anything to do with the mana. Looks like no. Just going to send it back over to David, and ooh, Mayhem Devil. Hello. This game looks pretty solidly over at a glance here. Here's 6 mana. Uh-oh, is this going to be the Feasting Troll King coming down from David? 6 mana is usually Feasting Troll King mana. There's Witch's Oven, so we'll see we'll see if he decides to slam that thing. Here it comes. It comes with 3 food tokens once it enters the battlefield, so now let's see what he wants to do. Presumably we're just going to go ahead and attack and then, eat one of these food tokens from the Corvold attacking. We might have missed Corvold attack trigger as Brad's untapping already, so it looks like no attack trigger, but of course we'll see how that gets handled. But I think Brad's just debating picking up his permanents. Yep, easy game number 1 there for David. Just a quick Corvold just ends up stealing the game away from Brad with his black-white deck, though we didn't even see the white in that game. Let's take a look at the sideboard, see if Brad can drum up any action in the second games here. We've got 2 Sorcerous Spyglass, 3 Duress, 2 Legion's End, 2 Noxious Grasp, 2 Kaya's Wrath, 2 Massacre Girl, and 2 Doom Foretold. So, let's take a moment here to think. Kaya's Wrath doesn't seem like where we want to be. Duress is interesting. It definitely has hits in like Trail of Crumbs, potentially Witch's Oven on the play. Sorcerous Spyglass, another one that you can have some hits on. And then there's Legion's End. If you can navigate a way to Legion's End, to get your Legion's End to resolve and actually exile cats or Gilded Geese or whatever, it's quite good. But oftentimes, if the cat player has a Witch's Oven in play, they just are never going to expose their Cauldron Familiar to the actual Legion's End. So that gets kind of awkward. Doom Foretold looks like a huge brick to me. So all things considered, I don't really love Brad's position. He's got a couple of niche sideboard cards, some things that you could make an argument for. So if he doesn't have anything really bad in his main deck, I don't think we're making huge upgrades here. But let's take a look at David's sideboard. Over on Jund's Sacrifice, we have 1 Legion's End, 4 Noxious Grasp, 1 Liliana Dreadhorde General, 1 Garrett Cursed Huntsman, 1 Liliana's Triumph, 3 Duress, 2 Massacre Girl, and 2 Thrashing Brontodon, So, similar feeling here. I do like going bigger against these decks. I like the Liliana Dreadhorde General, the Garrett Cursed Huntsman, Legion's End, and hope they misclick. I like that one. That seems like a pretty good line, yeah. So I like going bigger. Liliana and Garrett are kind of the 2 that stand out to me, but other than that, I don't know. Oh, the Thrashing Brontodons also seem quite good, So I like the Thrashing Brontodons, I like the Liliana, I like the Garrett. That's about it, I think, from David. Just kind of go bigger. Looks like you have the extra color in this matchup, so it seems pretty good. And, the white is definitely there for Brad, but I'm not even certain what the white is doing for him. It feels much more powerful on David's side, having the green and the red for the acceleration, the fixing. He also gets the Mayhem Devil, which is just absurd in these matchups. We saw Brad just have to swift end it on sight in the last game and then just lose to Corvold. So yeah, it's probably a Cruel Celebrant. Like I would have to assume. I can't really imagine it's anything other than Cruel Celebrant. So let's see if Brad can string some stuff together here in game number 2. Oh, it looks like apparently Seraph of Scales is also in the deck, in Brad's deck. So that card, I've had a strenuous relationship with Seraph of the Scales in my time. I've seen people put that card in a lot of their decks. And every time I see somebody put Seraph of the Scales in their deck, I kind of just question it indefinitely. I've yet to be impressed with that card, really. I've seen it go, like, there's a lot of people played it in Esper Hero way back when. Yeah, it's a trap. Wow. I agree. I'm pretty convinced that Seraph of the Scales is in fact a trap. I tend to agree. Alright. Looks like David on a quick mulligan to 6 here. David was on a mulligan to 6, though, last game, so nothing too scary for him. All right. Let's see what he manages to do with this 6. Brad, of course, will be on the play here. Here comes Temple of Skrylance. Gonna go ahead and scry to the bottom. Swamp off the top for David. Looks like a pretty reasonable hand from him. He's gonna lead things off with a Gilded Goose. He's got an Oven in his hand as well. Didn't really catch too many more. Ooh, Paradise Druid, Mayhem Devil. Looks like the hits don't stop coming for David. Here's Priest of the Forgotten Gods for Brad. Ooh, Cauldron Familiar. That's a nice draw. That'll go excellently with his oven that he already has. I wonder if David's just going to go ahead and ramp something out this turn. He could just cast his Mayhem Devil right now. Or he could wait till next turn, potentially just deploy a Paradise Druid, and then next turn play, like, Mayhem Devil, Cat Oven. That could be a pretty powerful turn, assuming he has the lands for it, but looks like it's just going to be Cat for now. I assume we'll see a follow-up Oven here as well. We will. And then that ought to be it from David. Indeed it is. Ayara, First of Lochthwain. Hello. All right, this one's pretty interesting. So this is definitely going to break the symmetry on these cat oven things happening. So this is just going to be David, activating his cat, going to go ahead and drain Brad for one at end step here. IR First of Lochthwain is definitely going to be pretty interesting if Brad can get the cat oven thing going here. Of course, he doesn't actually have any real engine currently. And with the Mayhem Devil in David's hand, he could pretty easily gun down this Ayara if he wants to. So we'll see what he elects to do. He could also take out the Priest of the Forgotten Gods very easily. All right, so it's also worth noting that if David had not brought Cauldron Familiar back on Brad's end step, that he would have been able to kill the Ayara on this turn without having to sacrifice the food for the Gilded Goose, because he could bring the cat back. That's a sacrifice the cat, bring the cat back, and then that's another 2 sacrifices. That, of course, does leave your cat exposed to, like, Legion's End or whatever, but notably the play we've taken here does the same. So definitely worth noting. Potential misplay there. Here comes Order of Midnight to pick up the Priest of the Forgotten Gods and then send it back over to Brad. Brad looks like he's really doing his best to kind of plan for this long game, but I don't think that this plan is really going to be able to cope with all of the pressure that David's going to apply just by having Mayhem Devil Cat Oven in play. It's super powerful. You basically get a free shock every turn, not to mention a free drain every turn. And so now we'll see what David wants to do. He's got a pretty obvious attack for one. Or attack, looks like here are attacks for 4. Brad can't really block unless he wants to just lose his Ayara for nothing. I would expect to see David shoot down this Ayara currently. I think, you can sacrifice the food to gain 3 life. You can't instead, you could, in theory, just make a food token instead, and it looks like that might be what David's electing to do. And also, if Brad attempts to deploy a 2-power creature, or 2-toughness creature, you'll be able to just shoot it down at end step here, and then make a food and untap, and hopefully be able to do some more work. Oh, is that an Ethereal Absolution in Brad's hand? That seems very, very good right now, if that is what I saw. So we'll see what David wants to do. I assume we're certainly going to make a food with our goose. Otherwise, we would have killed this Ayara by now if we were going to go ahead and do that plan. So it's like David's going to go ahead and make a food. 1 damage to Priest of the Forgotten Gods. Bring the cat back. Brad will sacrifice the Priest of the Forgotten Gods to Ayara to draw a card. Pretty standard interactions going on here. Just nice trading back and forth. Brad not too bummed out about tapping out of his Ayara, because, of course, he's not going to be blocking with it anyway, so. Oh boy, that definitely is an Ethereal Absolution in Brad's hand. That is going to be bad news for David if Brad has a 6th land. Ooh, Witch's Oven, however, a very good draw in the meantime. I wonder how much work David can get done on this turn with 2 Witch's Ovens. He can now deal a whole lot of damage, so let's see what he wants to do. Looks like he's going to go to the red zone with all of his creatures. Brad just gonna go ahead and take it all down to 9 already. So now he's going to go ahead and he's looking at his ovens, see if he wants to do anything fancy with it here. It looks almost like David might actually be able to just burn down Brad, even if he just casts the Ethereal Absolution next turn. I think we're quite close to that territory, so here comes the cat oven shenanigans. So sacrifice the cat, sacrifice the oven. We'll see what David's pinging down. Looks like he's going to go ahead and target down the Iara. So here comes the cat, 1 to the Iara, drain. Brad will go down to 8. And then we're just going to go ahead and see him do that exact same thing again. Here goes the cat, ping the Iara. Now he has a food token. No real reason to take any more game actions right now. So I think ship the turn back is correct. And, well, looks like David agrees. Brad. Let's see if he found the 6th land. Oh, it's a Temple of Silence. Oh, that is not an untapped 6 mana source. So now we'll have to see how he can spend his 5 mana to try and survive 1 turn to get his Ethereal Absolution out. Looks like Seraph of the Scales is the choice. Here's an attack for 2 with Order of Midnight. Cannot block with it, of course, so no good there. And I expect that we'll see David do some things to deal with this Seraph of the Scales. I think that, you know, David might just have lethal here, or at least very close. So if we go, here is Cauldron Familiar, drain you for 1, Brad to 7, bring back all Cauldron Familiar, hit you for 2, down to 5, and then 2. Yeah. This is absolutely lethal. And looks like David has seen it as well. And without I believe that this just would have been lethal even through Ethereal Absolution, because all of these triggers are still doing the damage. So looks like players just going through the motions here, making sure that they agree that Brad is in fact dead. And I agree, Brad is in fact dead. Just shows David the Ethereal Absolution with the Temple of Silence there on the last turn. Not in time, not going to be able to save him. And well, that makes for a pretty quick and easy 2-0 here for David in the first round of the night. Nice way to start things off. Congrats to him. Jund Sacrifice doing pretty good stuff as per usual. I'm a big fan of this Jund Sacrifice deck. I quite enjoy it. But with that, let's take a quick moment to talk about where you're watching this. This is Paradise Games. So if you're watching us live right now, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching a VOD on YouTube, then be sure to come check us out live. We're live every day on twitch.tv/ not live every day. We're live every Monday, Thursday, and Friday at twitch.tv/paradise_games at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. And if you miss any of the content on the live stream and you want to go back and watch maybe game 1 of that last match, then you can check us out on YouTube. If you just search up the PodVod, you'll be able to find it super easily. I would also like to mention the Pioneer 1K we've got going on December 14th. That is 8 days from now. It is a cash payout 1K. It is Pioneer. It will be here in Bellingham, Washington. If you're in the greater Seattle area, you absolutely need to pre-register. You absolutely need to sign up. And if for whatever reason you're busy that day, you can't make it, you live too far away, etc., you can always go ahead and check it out here. I will be live streaming the whole thing, and it's going to be a blast. I'm really looking forward to it, and we're going to have a bunch of giveaways on stream all next week leading up to the event. So it's going to be a really good time to be paying attention, watching the stream. It's going to be a blast. I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you so much for tuning in. With that, we're going to leave you with some Hot Damn Scandal while we find another match to bring on camera here. Should be probably just a secondary match for round number 1, but if not, we'll be back with round number 2. Regardless, it will not be very long, so make sure you guys don't go anywhere.
The bottom fell out of the clouds today, and the rain came down like a mirror. One big sheet and it shattered on the ground. Now it's 7 years of bad luck all over this town. It's collection time on all of your debts, and you can't get by just talking. Your smile don't work, and your car don't start, and your doors ain't keeping you alone. No, not even if you lock them. No, not even if you lock them. When you're tapped into that bit of vein, just about anything feels good. The sun tried shining on a lost boy's eyes. They reflected oh so pretty, but it's cold behind them golden shores, and the sweet light wasn't nothing more than their own damn wishing, 'cause they just don't listen. Now wish on your candles, pray to your God, cry for your mama, put $1 on the bar. It feels like breathing, but the only good feeling ain't a gamble, is a sin. So I think I play it safe and get a gin. I'll take the devil for a spin. When you're tapped into that bit of vein, just about anything feels good. For some the morning brings another day, but all it does for me is shine an ugly light around in the room that I've been hiding in. Now I take the easy way, yeah, that gets harder every day, but I ain't here to fix myself. I'm just trying to blind these eyes from hell. When you're tapped into that bit of vein, just about anything feels good. Been relying on my bruises, defined my edges against skies of gray, but now my worries are how far away. The sky is clear and I begin to fade. Once I believed in paradise, a place where I would never feel no pain, a state of mind I never have to change. But now it all looks alright, and I begin to fade. Trouble, I need you. I don't know what I am, but I ain't nothing without these blues. I've heard a million happy endings. I've seen the good guys win, I've seen the bad guys pay, but now I never read that final page, 'cause in that sunset ride, yeah, I begin to fade. Trouble, I need you. I don't know what I am, but I ain't nothing without these blues. there's heaven for the hopeless. A place where we can all still wax and wane. A place where cloudy skies can still bring rain. So in my shaking faith, I clasp my hands and pray.
Alrighty, everyone, welcome back for round number 2 here of the standard FNM at Paradise Games. This was a blazingly fast round number 1, and we walked outside and watched the last match finishing up, so means that round number 2 is going to be starting, well, rather promptly. So we've got David returning here with his Jund Sacrifice deck versus Chris's Mono Green deck. So this is definitely an interesting take on Mono Green. It's not quite the traditional Stompy you're used to seeing. I know he's got some Trail of Crumbs, the usual Gilded Geese suspect, and I think he's even playing some, like, Keeper of Fables up near the top end, so pretty exciting. We'll have to see how this one plays out. I think that it is probably going to try to be the aggressor against this Jund Sacrifice deck. I expect it to have problems with the card Mayhem Devil in particular, but we'll have to see how it plays out. This is why we play the games, of course. All right. So we've got, looks like a nice oven here from David to start things off. Looks like Gilded Goose right on time. Turn number 2 here for David. Chris, unfortunately, missing a nice goose of his own. He's got plenty of 1-drops in his deck, so this looks like a slower start from Chris. Just a couple forests. Turns back over to David now. I would expect to just see a Windmill Slam Windmill Slam Mayhem Devil here. I don't know why my head went to Kenrith's transformation. I overheard people talking about that between rounds in the other room, and for some reason, my mind just went to Kenrith's transformation. All right. I expect that David should probably just take 2 points off this Overgrown Tomb here. I think that leaving the food in play for later with your goose is pretty valuable. Your life total's still high. Go ahead and spend some life to power out your Mayhem Devil. He's thinking about playing Paradise Druid this turn. I think I prefer just slamming out your Mayhem Devil. Looks like he agrees. Mayhem Devil does hit the board. He's going to ship the turn back over to Chris now. All right. So now we'll see Chris untap, take a draw step for himself. Let's see if he's got anything to do particularly powerful on this third turn of the game. He's going to need something pretty good here. He's quite far behind already. Mayhem Devil looks like a big problem for his deck, and it feels like if he just spends this turn answering Mayhem Devil, he could be in an alright situation. Granted, David really doesn't have very many cards left in the tank after this, but Forest Go is not what you want to see. And ooh, here's Trail of Crumbs from David. This has got to be one of the better draws in his deck. Now he can start going to town with this Gilded Goose he's got. Doing damage while he does it, finding more and more threats and action. So I would expect to see him just sacrifice a food to the goose, go ahead and activate Trail of Crumbs with that. If he finds a land, it looks like he'll be able to cast a second Trail of Crumbs or a Paradise Druid. So it seems pretty good to me, but I think we're going to start with activate here. Looks like David's going to agree. Looks like he's just going to use the mana. I'm a little confused. Looks like he's paying the 1. So he is paying the 1. He's going to find the cat instead of the forest here. So I assume he's just going to go ahead and play the cat. Cat seems pretty good here. Probably a little too good to turn up or turn down here. He still have the mana from the goose floating, so he's probably going to go ahead and... Oh no, he had to use the mana to cast the Cauldron Familiar, excuse me. So he's going to go ahead and drain Chris for 1, shoot Chris for 1, and then we'll get a nice attack for 3 in. So we'll see Chris go all the way down to 15 here. And still no play from him. The days of standard where you can just land go until turn 4, I think have largely passed us. It feels really bad not having anything to do before turn 4. I mean, look at the just unbelievable disadvantage Chris is at. I mean, he's going to need to slam something really big and really good right now to be able to deal with this. Wicked Wolf, pretty darn good, I'd argue. So looks like he's going to go ahead and try to fight the Mayhem Devil. Of course, David will get 1 ping when Chris sacrifices his food token, but we'll make sure he remembered the trigger, of course. Looks like the Mayhem Devil's just going to hit the bin. He doesn't want to sacrifice it to the oven in response or do any sacrificing in response, so it looks like he might reevaluate here. Yeah, it looks like he's going to go ahead and sacrifice the cat in response to deal 1 damage to Chris, and then I assume he'll just bring the cat back, deal a second 2 points of damage to Chris there. Of course, cat plus oven plus Mayhem Devil deals a total of 3 damage to the player if you just send it all at the face, so pretty powerful interaction. So, yeah, it looks like the player's just confirming that that is 3 total damage. Of course, you sacrifice the cat, that's a ping from Mayhem Devil. You sacrifice the food to bring the cat back, that's a ping from Mayhem Devil, and then the cat entering the battlefield drains you. Yeah, so. Alright, so. Players are agreeing that that is in fact correct life totals. Chris at 12, David at 18. But Mayhem Devil down, and Chris with a bunch of cards in hand means that he could easily come back in this game. David does have Trail of Crumbs, though, so that's a very powerful engine. He's going to be able to find the answers he needs, especially when he has Trail of Crumbs plus the oven and the cat already. I mean, oven, cat plus Trail of Crumbs is, you know, a chump block for this Wicked Wolf. Pay a mana to... it's a chump block. It pays a mana to look at the top 2 and put 1 into your hand, and it drains Chris for point of damage. And here's the second copy of Trail of Crumbs. And now David's just going to go to town. I mean, he's not going to be out of cards for the rest of the game ever. So we'll have to see how Chris ends up dealing with this, if he manages to at all. So David's going to let his Overgrown Tomb enter the battlefield untapped. He'll have to take 2 damage from that, of course. It'll put him down to 16. Debating if he wants to cast this Paradise Druid or just spend his mana Trail of Crumbsing. I would just Trail of Crumbs here. We've got... we don't have any real action in our hand. Just a couple of dumb... Just a dumb Paradise Druid, really. But it looks like he is going to elect to just cast it out, so... He's going to elect to have more mana for later turns. He also attacked for 1 instead of leaving back to block and sacrifice the Wicked Wolf. I can't say I'm a huge fan of this. I mean, I get that Chris has a lower life total than us currently, but still, that seems pretty mediocre to me. Alright. Looks like here comes Questing Beast from Chris. I'm not certain what the other card that Chris played this turn was. Is that a Ginger Brute that just isn't attacking? I'm not entirely certain. It is indeed a Ginger Brute that is not attacking. That makes enough sense. It's no real point in attacking here. So, obviously, the Questing Beast cannot be blocked, so no good there. David considering chumping away the Gilded Goose in front of the Wolf now, and yeah, you might have to. Questing Beast is kind of a problem here. Looks like he's just going to elect to take the 8. And that's not great. Obviously, next turn, Chris will be able to get in with the Ginger Brute plus both creatures again, which will be a lethal attack, assuming David doesn't gain too much more life. Of course, he will be able to gain 2 life off of the cat entering the battlefield 2 times, so David's really just kind of trying to stall here. So I think that David should just bring this cat back right now. Try and, activate his Trail of Crumbs and do some good stuff. Try and find some action here. Corvold seems absurd if he finds it off the first look, so of course. Ooh, Vraska Golgari Queen and Forest the looks. Looks like he'll take the Vraska Golgari Queen. Now he gets to decide if he wants to Trail of Crumbs again or if he just wants to stop there. Looks like he will Trail of Crumbs again. He does have the Gilded Goose, so he can do more. Ooh, hello. Mayhem Devil, the hit here. we'll see if David wants to cast either of these spells. I think I like casting Mayhem Devil here. Mayhem Devil should ideally be able to trade with probably the Wicked Wolf if you go ahead and shoot down the Ginger Brute, and then you can shoot down the Wicked Wolf, or you can try and trade with Questing Beast just straight up with your thing. Looks like end step Chris is just going to go ahead and sacrifice the Ginger Brute to the Wicked Wolf so that he doesn't have to tap his guy at any point next turn to do that. So seems a little unnecessary to me. You can always just go ahead and do that on your turn after you've declared your attack. So, gives you the opportunity to give your wolf indestructible on your turn, which is quite good. All right, let's see what Chris is up to now. Looks like here's Nissa, who shakes the world. Ooh, this looks very good. David is pretty close to having lethal, though, notably. If Chris makes a little bit too aggressive of an attack, I could easily see David just untapping and killing him with the 3 damage he can have from the Cat plus Oven this turn and the 3 damage he gets from it next turn as well. Let's see if Chris wants to spend his mana at all. Of course, he does have double mana now. Looks like he's going to go ahead and tap for 4. Let's see what comes down here from Chris. Ooh, Vivian Arcbow Ranger. That one is pretty good. So, giving Chris's creatures trample seems really, really good right now. Of course, he can give a +1/+1 counter to both of them. They can both get trample. Seems pretty absurd on this board. Alright, so looks like Chris went ahead and attacked. So he's got... Oh, is this Vivian Champion of the Wilds? Oh, excuse me. It's Vivian Champion of the Wilds. Okay. Alright, so no trample here. It's been a hot minute. I've seen a good bit more Vivian Arcbow Ranger than Champion of the Wilds in recent memory, but he's just going to go ahead and chump block away the Wicked Wolf and then deal 3 damage to Chris. It looks like it's just all going upstairs. Yep, looks like Chris down to 7. Alright, and then he's going to get a nice Trail of Crumbs activation here. Ooh, Witch's Oven. That looks like lethal to me. Oh, not quite, actually. It's very, very close to lethal. It should be lethal with a Gilded Goose making food, or sacking of food. So here's 1 damage to Chris. He's going to go ahead and use the mana to pay for Trail of Crumbs, put Chris down to 6. And now, of course, Chris might not quite know it yet, but I believe he is dead to the double Witch's Oven plus the Mayhem Devils. So unfortunate for Chris. He feels very, very close to winning this game. I believe, if the current state of things had just played on for another turn or two, he likely would win. But of course, with the 3 damage that just came in from... The 3 damage that's going to come in from both Oven activations from sacrificing the cat on David's turn mean that is going to be exactly the 6 damage that David needs to find the win here in game number 1. So definitely a pretty exciting first game here. This looked closer in the end than I thought it might be, given how the game started. I mean, David looked so far ahead at the start. He was just mowing through. He had so many things in play. He had such a huge advantage. So I think that Chris fought valiantly to get himself to this point in this game, but no play until turn 4 means that that is going to be lights out for Chris in this first game. Let's take a look at both players' sideboards here with mono green. Man, I had a little bit of a heart attack there with Chris's sideboard. That first card, Once and Future, of course, I might have thought that was Once Upon a Time. Of course, that card no longer legal in the format, so that one spooked me a little bit. But regardless, for Chris, we have 2 Once and Future, 2 Lovestruck Beast, 2 Sorceress Spyglass, 2 Shifting Ceratops, 2 Return to Nature, 2 Thrashing Brontodon, and 3 Crawl Harpooner. So I definitely like the Thrashing Brontodons. I also quite enjoy an amount of Crawl Harpooners on the play to be able to gun down some Gilded Geese on turn number 2. It's a quite favorable interaction if you can line that up pretty well. It's less good on the draw. It's still pretty narrow, but it does feel really, really good on the play. So if you have some slots to kind of, change a 2-drop out for a Crawl Harpooner, I'm pretty into it on the play against Gilded Goose decks. Return to Nature also pretty tempting. Same with Sorceress Spyglass. You can, really try and shut down this cat combo that David's doing on his side of the field, which seems like it's definitely Chris's plan. He's trying to just jam a bunch of cards into his deck here that are going to allow him to be able to beat that Oven Cat interaction. And that seems like a pretty good plan. It's definitely David's best plan against Chris. It provides him, theoretically infinite chump blocks and all and the like, so seems pretty good. Let's take a look at David's board once again. We have 1 Legion's End, 4 Noxious Grasp, 1 Liliana Dreadhorde General, 1 Garrett Cursed Huntsman, 1 Liliana's Triumph, 3 Duress, 2 Massacre Girl, and 2 Thrashing Brontodon. So, over for David, we didn't actually see any Legion's End targets, so I'm not certain that I would bring that in, though I do think it's actually good against Chris's deck. But if I were David, I probably would not bring that in. The 4 Noxious Grasp are slam dunks, obviously. Other than that, Liliana Dreadhorde General I could be convinced of, given how that game went. And the 2 Massacre Girls seem like they're probably on average going to be pretty good against a mono green deck, so could also be convinced of that one. So yeah, I think I like the Massacre Girls, the Noxious Grasp, the Liliana Dreadhorde General, and maybe even the Garrett Cursed Huntsman. Definitely gets a little bit bigger. I'm not certain what we're really cutting for all of this stuff, though. We probably don't have room for everything that I just mentioned. So it's probably going to have to be some trimming here and there. End up with a slightly leaner deck, some more efficient answers, and some more big stuff to really lock out the game and rely less heavily on our cat engine in a post-board game, because as per usual, your opponents tend to bring in answers to your cat package, but oftentimes with this Jund Sacrifice deck, you can just value them out with other random big dumb fatties like Corvold and whatever, and it doesn't even have to be Corvold, it can just be Liliana or the like. So we'll see how that plan works out for David. Looks like Chris, he's no nonsense. He's already done sideboarding, presented his deck, ready to slam David. Hurry up and present your deck. Chris has Ginger Brutes to play, and David just keeps shuffling. Come on, man. Come on. Pick it up. All right. There we go. Let's see how these opening hands look for the players. Of course, Chris will be on the play, down 1 game. We've seen David win a quick 3 in a row now on stream tonight already, so David kind of running it up for us, but that hand looks bad to me, so David's going to send that one back. Let's see if Chris can keep his hand, of course. Looks like Chris, no good as well, so both players down to a 6-card hand here. It's always good to see a little bit of symmetrical mulliganing, keep the game a little more fair. Alrighty, I think Chris definitely looking for a start that has a little bit more going on the early turns of the game there this time. I think that was certainly Chris's downfall. If he had any sort of thing going on earlier, I mean, we saw Chris lose the game with multiple cards in hand at the end of the game, and it's not like he was really drawing that many or anything. He just had more threats than he could deploy with his mana because they were all cost so much mana. So hopefully Chris can get off to a little faster foot. Turn 4 on the draw being your first play is rough, so hopefully he can get a nice faster start. And it doesn't have to be blistering or anything, but I would love to see any 2-drop or maybe a Vivian Champion of the Wilds on turn 3 instead of turn 5 or 6 or whatever, so anything along those lines. Alright, here comes turn 1 Gilded Goose, and that is just what the doctor ordered as compared to last game. Turn 1 Gilded Goose, we're going to be able to accelerate into all of our other threats. If we have a nice turn 2 follow-up, it's going to be excellent. And even if we don't, being able to play like a Questing Beast or a Wicked Wolf on turn 3 as opposed to turn 4 on the draw is a huge difference. So here's a cat, turn 1 for David. Just going to go ahead and put both players to 19. And Paradise Druid ramping away is Chris. we could be in turn 3 Nissa territory. This is always very, very scary whenever turn 3 Nissa is a possibility on the other side of the field, especially on the play. It feels pretty much unbeatable always. Like, you need to have a Noxious Grasp, and you need to have it that turn to be able to beat turn 3 Nissa. And even if you do, you still feel like you're just so far behind, because you still have to deal with the 3/3 Forest or whatever. And heaven forfend if they play Nissa, attack you for 3, and then get to use the mana or something like that, then it's just nightmarish. So all right, looks like we've got Thrashing Brontodon coming down here from Chris, so there's that 3/4. It's mostly here for that currently. Couple of Mayhem Devils in David's hand. I expect we'll just see this Noxious Grasp get pointed at the Thrashing Brontodon. Certainly, Chris notably missing his land drop here on this turn. So David might have had an opportunity there to just Noxious Grasp that Paradise Druid and try and really pinch Chris on mana, but the Thrashing Brontodon is going to be a problem at some point. Obviously, we have 2 Mayhem Devils in our hand, so if we draw an Oven, it's insane. So I definitely understand not wanting to do that, settling in, accepting that your opponent's going to get out of the mana screw by the time this game ends. Notably, David doesn't have a fast clock or anything like that, so pretty close decision here. Here's the attack for 3. Looks like he is going to... Who is that? Noxious Grasp your Gilded Goose during combat? Huh. Alright. So yeah, it looks like Noxious Grasp your Gilded Goose in combat. That's going to prompt Chris to go ahead and make a food with it. That's definitely an interesting decision. I think if we were going to Noxious Grasp Gilded Goose, we should have just Noxious Grasp the Paradise Druid on our turn, probably. I don't know. I could see an argument for not doing that as well. I mean, the Gilded Goose does have quite relevant text later on in the game, but... and also the Paradise Druid only has a single toughness. If we can ever ping it down with Mayhem Devil, that's pretty good. Oh, and there's the Oven. So we did immediately get punished for not Noxious Grasping the Thrashing Brontodon, and notably if we had, we would be in an insane position right now. We'd be able to just kill the goose, but... So if Chris goes ahead and taps a mana to be able to destroy Witch's Oven now, then David will be able to shoot the Paradise Druid with the while it's tapped out, and he could even do that with just the Thrashing Brontodon dying trigger. So he's going to get a total of 3 triggers here for the Mayhem Devil plus a drain. So I expect that Chris will be taking 3, and then the Paradise Druid will be dying. Now Chris left with only 2 lands. David, of course, does still have the 3/3 in play. Chris, still no mana. You hate to see it. So now we're just going to see some aggressive attacks from David, I think. David has 6 power in play. Chris at 14 means that a Mayhem Devil plus attack this turn, if Chris bricks on anything to do again, will be lethal. Here's the attack, 4/6. David, no cards in hand, so he just needs Chris to brick off for one more turn. Chris will be able to gain 2 life, or gain 3 life with food, if he decides to do that, which I don't think he did on end step, which seems like quite a mistake. Of course, it only gains you 2 because of the Mayhem Devil, because you should do it with the second Mayhem Devil on the stack, but still. And notably, Chris is going to have to block here, so... So, Gilded Goose will get chumped away. Chris will go down to 2 now. So now the food does not even save Chris. If Chris sacrifices a food, He just dies to the Mayhem Devil triggers before he actually gains any life. But with that, an unfortunate mana screw there from Chris in the second game. I thought there were a few interesting decisions there for the first few turns of the game before Chris, obviously ended up entirely bricked off on mana. I think that he probably should have elected to untap and then sacrifice the Thrashing Brontodon so that he didn't expose his Paradise Druid to Mayhem Devil. But credit to David for preying on, noticing that Chris was a little light on mana there. He managed to take out the Gilded Goose with the Noxious Grasp, burn down the Paradise Druid with the Mayhem Devil trigger, so ended up pretty clean there from David in a nice 2-0 once again. David 4-0 in the feature match tonight, so congrats to him. He's been running it up a little bit, and if you've missed any of David's success, I highly recommend you check out the PodVod later tonight on YouTube. It will be up. With that, I would like to thank our sponsor for the night, Tabletop. Tabletop is the absolute best in board game apparel clothing. If you are into board games and you're into clothes, I think Tabletop's the place for you. The holidays are coming up. If you know somebody who really likes board games, any type of that, and anything like that, I highly recommend getting them a Tabletop outfit. I've heard that it's the perfect gift for your nerdy boyfriend because the quality on the shirt is excellent, so you can give it to them and then you get to use it as pajamas. So I do believe that is pretty much all upside for Tabletop. So thank you so much to Tabletop for supporting the stream. They make great stuff, and we're super happy to have them. So thank you to Tabletop. I'm going to leave you guys with some cat pasty here for a moment while we go find a secondary match for this round, or we'll be right back with round number 3. Regardless, we will not be gone for very long, so make sure you don't go anywhere. Back in action here. Round number 3, Paradise Games Friday Night Magic Standard. We are just cruising through the rounds tonight. We have got round number 3 already here. A little bit of Black Hat. Brad back at it once again versus James on Green Black Adventures. A nice time to see some Green Black Adventures. We've seen a lot of black tonight, but that's kind of just how standard goes. A little bit of absence of Jeskai, unfortunately. Pretty sweet Cavalier deck that unfortunately we aren't going to see tonight, but maybe another time. Alright, we've got our Priest of the Forgotten Gods out and about now. Here's James cracking a Fabled Passage. He's going to go ahead and find himself a forest. Swamps the draw for turn. He's got himself a nice Lucky Clover in his hand. That seems quite good at some point, but ooh. Here's Edgewall Innkeeper, go. Oh, that is very scary from Brad. Brad's going to need to find some answers to that, and right now, here comes Gutterbones and Cauldron Familiar. I expect that we're going to see both of these get sacrificed so that Brad can just go ahead and kill an Edgewall Innkeeper. It feels like you really have to do this, so James is going to take 2 damage off of the Priest of the Forgotten Gods. He's going to sacrifice his Edgewall Innkeeper. We'll see if Brad wants to do anything exciting with the mana he makes. Swift End the other Edgewall Innkeeper. And you know what? That was a pretty clean answer to those 2 Edgewall Innkeepers there. So I bet Brad's pretty happy about how that went. And, if your opponent's happy, you certainly aren't. So James is going to be a sad boy about it. Let's see how he decides to progress. He drew a nice Overgrown Tomb there. He looks like he has quite a few lands in his hand. I see a Foulmire Knight. I think there might be a Lucky Clover in there as well. So Lucky Clover looks like he's just going to go ahead and deploy the Lucky Clover with a tapped Overgrown Tomb. The Foulmire Knight would have been excellent had he had the those Edgewall Innkeepers still in play. But without them, looks like he's probably going to try and hold on to him a little longer, try and get some more value. So totally reasonable. Here is Godless Shrine, enters the battlefield tapped. Gonna attack for 1, just deploy himself the Murderous Rider. Let's see what James would like to do now. Here is Order of Midnight. Oh yeah. Cast both my Edgewall Innkeepers. Go ahead. Oh, that's so good. Alright, Brad. Now going to be looking to find answers to both Edgewall Innkeepers again. Otherwise, James is just going to be able to go off next turn. Here's an attack for 2. James, of course, is going to take it. No good blocks available here. Down to 14 for him. Hopefully, Brad's going to be able to activate this Priest of the Forgotten Gods once more. And yeah, here is Cauldron Familiar. So Cauldron Familiar, tick James down to 13. Brad, back up to 20 now. I'm sure we'll see an activation of this Priest of the Forgotten Gods. So be a little surprised to see anything else come first. So Gutterbones back to hand for Brad. Looks like he's going to play it, so presumably he's just going to be able to sacrifice the Gutterbones and the Cauldron Familiar, so he'll be able to keep his Murderous Rider around. So James is going to go ahead and take 2 damage from that. Brad will draw another card, and if it worked last time, might as well try it again. So here's Swift End plus the Priest of the Forgotten Gods activation to take out the 2 Edgewall Innkeepers once again. And now we'll see what James elects to do. He's got the Foulmire Knight in his hand, so he can draw some cards, but that does cost him life. And he is running kind of low on life points currently. He's facing down about 4 damage a turn pretty consistently here with the Murderous Rider and the Priest of the Forgotten Gods. Here comes Order of Midnight. Looks like that's how he wants to start. He's got a Smitten Swordmaster and a Foulmire Knight as the non-land spells in his hand. I think I like just sending it over there and just trying to draw a couple cards with the Foulmire Knight. Hopefully you hit an Edgewall Innkeeper, potentially an Order of Midnight. You get to draw a bunch of cards in the next turn. Looks like James agrees. Also, if we end up putting a bunch of Knights into play, we'll be able to gain quite a bit of life back with this Smitten Swordmaster we have in our hand. If we find another Lucky Clover, that gets pretty powerful as well. So, of course, only a single Knight in play now, and probably looking at 2 in play next turn. That's a nice 4 points of life, though, so not too shabby. So here comes Gutterbones back again. Oh boy, I think we might end up having to sacrifice our poor little Order of Midnight again. So there goes the Order of Midnight. Now James down to 7. Brad will draw another card, add more black mana. Play a land. He's going to go ahead and return Gutterbones to his hand. I assume we'll see him play it again. Oh no, looks like he just passes the turn. Alright, end step. James is going to draw 2 cards, lose 2 life, down to 5. Let's see what he found. I think I see another Lucky Clover. Vraska Golgari Queen, I believe, is another one in there. So the Vraska Golgari Queen could take out this, excuse me, I'm blanking on the name, Priest of the Forgotten Gods, there it is. That seems pretty helpful to me. It seems like probably where we're going to have to start. We are at 5. We can't really deal with too many more activations of that Priest of the Forgotten Gods. So it looks like James agrees. Here comes Vraska. Vraska's going to minus on Priest of the Forgotten Gods. And yeah, we're basically just going to hope that Brad doesn't have too much more. I'm a little curious as to why Brad didn't deploy his Gutterbones on the last turn. He had an untapped swamp at the end of the last turn. Seems a little incorrect. He could have had an extra 2/1 attacking this turn, and with James at 5 seems like a somewhat costly oversight, unfortunately, from him. So here we see the Gutterbones coming into play, and I think he's got another Swift End in hand, does Brad. So land off the top, that is not particularly powerful. Alright, here comes Foulmire Knight. I expect to see a triple curry favor here off the Smitten Swordmaster, and then just have the Smitten Swordmaster get deployed. It'll put James up to 6, ought to be able to buy him enough time for another card. But it's certainly not the best Smitten Swordmaster you've ever seen in your life. Only gaining you 3 life, your opponent losing 3. I mean, you can pretty easily engineer those scenarios just by casting it without any Lucky Clovers, but looks like this is going to happen. So James is going to go to 6. Brad will go down to 15. Of course, Brad does still have lethal on board if he manages to find a way to get these creatures out of the way. He does have 6 power, so we'll see what he manages to do. And even if he doesn't, he's just going to have good attacks here. I mean, James is going to have to make some subpar blocks regardless. He can toss a 2/1 lifelink in front of the Gutterbones, and Swift End is going to take out the Smitten Swordmaster. And now we just have, a Foulmire Knight trading with a Murderous Rider. It looks like that is what's happening. And then we'll get to see a Murderous Rider cast post-combat. The third Murderous Rider, they're really doing a number on James. James basically needs a finality right now off the top. Foulmire Knight, that's a little awkward when you're at 2. And I believe that is going to be that. Those are, in fact, Lucky Clovers. yes, they are. And James is now dead. The Lucky Clovers did draw themselves the cards back off of these Foulmire Knights, but they also, that's pretty much all they did. So it looks like, James is at 4, excuse me, not 2. So certainly much better. He can go to 1 here and draw 3 cards. That's pretty good. All right, Swift End off of Murderous Rider, Order of Midnight. See if he can string anything together here. He might actually be able to. Between Order of Midnight and Smitten Swordmaster being in his graveyard. As well as Lovestruck Beast. Ooh, Lovestruck Beast. Quite good here. James might actually have the tools here to try and maneuver a comeback. He's got lots of cards now. Lovestruck Beast does make enough blockers for him to essentially just stabilize the board for an entire turn. And if he wants to just go ahead and cast the other half of the Lovestruck Beast, that's an excellent way to just, if Brad doesn't have a way to deal with the 5/5, he doesn't have good attacks anymore. Yeah, this Lucky Clover looks real good right now. Midnight Reaper. All right. So I think that James is going to have to just go ahead and block the with the Lovestruck Beast here and kill a Murderous Rider. So 2 of the 1/1s die. Murderous Rider will die. Brad's going to draw 2 cards and lose 2 life off of the Midnight Reaper here. And let's see what he finds. I didn't get a good look at any of those, so looks like James probably not quite dead yet. Ooh, Order of Midnight. That's a good one. This can get back Cauldron Familiar, and, well, yep, Cauldron Familiar is in fact lethal, so James very close to stabilizing that game. I think if he would have untapped, he actually definitely would have been able to with Order of Midnight plus the Smitten Swordmaster in his graveyard. I think he would have been able to string together a couple Knights plus Smitten Swordmaster triple Curry Favor to gain, like, probably 8 or 9 life pretty easily, so Brad kind of just barely found lethal on that last turn there, so good for Brad. Managed to close it out. This looks like a pretty sweet matchup, and really the story of that game 1 was Brad finding a way to deal with all 4 of those Edgewall Innkeepers, so pretty spooky. All right, let's take a look at Brad's sideboard here. We've got 2 Sorcerer's Spyglass, 3 Duress, 2 Legion's End, 2 Noxious Grasp, 2 Kai's Wrath, 2 Massacre Girl, and 2 Doom Foretold. So off the top of my head, the Legion's Ends look great. The Noxious Grasps they're okay. They deal with, like, Questing Beast if you're particularly worried about that card, and they also kill Edgewall Innkeeper, so you definitely can't go wrong with Noxious Grasp in this matchup. Kai's Wrath is another reasonable choice. These Green-Black Adventures decks do flood the field pretty hard, and Massacre Girl is basically a Kai's Wrath on a 4/4 with Menace, so that one's excellent as well. Doom Foretold, you could make an argument for, but I would argue that the Golgari Adventures decks are just too good at putting dumb 1/1s into play that you can't realistically try and Doom Foretold them out, so I think that I'm pretty into the Massacre Girls, pretty into the Legion's Ends, and I think I probably also want some Noxious Grasp. So I think those are the cards that Brad should be looking at. Over on James's side, he's got 3 Duress, 2 Thrashing Brontodon, 2 Massacre Girl, 1 Disfigure, 2 Assassin's Trophy, 3 Noxious Grasp, and 2 Liliana Dreadhorde General. This sideboard looks pretty subpar in this matchup. Underwhelming, to say the least. I'm not even certain that I want any of this. I think I probably want Assassin's Trophy, because it's just a removal spell, and I kind of need those. Massacre Girl doesn't seem too good, though I suppose you could make an argument for it. You can build the board in such a way that you are happy casting a Massacre Girl on it, despite all of your guys pretty consistently dying to Massacre Girls. Liliana Dreadhorde General's definitely a direction you can go in as well if you feel like going bigger, and I definitely don't hate the going bigger in a post-board game plan. I expect that Brad will try and go a little bit bigger as well, so I buy the Liliana Dreadhorde Generals here too. Other than that, I mean, I fired off a few kind of meh options, and that's basically how I feel about all of these cards from James. Not super impressed by any of them. Pretty mad on all of them, so we'll see how post-board games go. It looks pretty promising for Brad, given that he took the first game, and I think the sideboard is kinder to him than it is to James. But admittedly, I do think that James is probably slightly advantaged here. I don't think that Brad can realistically answer all of those Edgewall Innkeepers as efficiently as he did in the first game, and I think if even one of them had survived, James likely would have won the game, but regardless, they did all die in the first game, so Brad needs some more sequences like that, and James probably just hoping to draw more of the card Edgewall Innkeeper, as most of the time that is what these adventure decks are trying to do. So let's take a look at both players' opening hands here for game number 2. Alrighty. I do see an Edgewall Innkeeper in the grip there for James. Didn't get a great look at the hand. Well, now we're getting a great look at it. Looks really good, minus the fact that it didn't have any lands in it, unfortunately. So James gonna have to mulligan it. Brad, on the other hand, looks like he's going to keep his 7-card hand. It looked pretty good at a glance. I saw some lands and some spells, so pretty happy with that. I think I see a Swift End in there as well with that Murderous Rider. Ooh, a Swamp pulled to the front, and it's a nice swamp too, so props to Brad for his swamp game. I must confess, I kind of have miserable taste, and my favorite lands are definitely white border lands. But I do like those swamps as well. Those are choice swamps. So, all right, this hand looks a little better from James. We got some lands. I see a Murderous Rider. Is that a disfigure? That is a disfigure. Looks like he's thinking about putting Murderous Rider on the bottom. Thinks otherwise. Decides to leave something else there instead. He's got Forest Disfigure, Murderous Rider as the cards that jumped out to me there at a quick glance. I see Swamp in hand. Here's turn 1 Gutter Bones from Brad. And here comes Lucky Clover from James. Look away, folks. It's ugly. Things are getting hideous here. We've got Lucky Clovers in play. All right, here's Temple of Skylance. It's going to leave a card on top, Witch's Oven, but no cat to go along with it. Disappointing, to say the least. Brad has yet to be able to assemble the nice cat oven combo that he's been looking to do all night. So we'll see if he can find a way to get his cats baked into pies anytime soon. James now has just 3 lands. He's holding up Swift End with this Lucky Clover, so notably, it gets pretty awkward if you try and cast your Murderous Rider with only 1 creature in play when you're trying to Swift End something, because you end up having the target or the copy of Swift End resolving first, and then your initial Murderous Rider Swift End fizzles, so you end up not being able to recast your Murderous Rider because the spell fizzles, so it doesn't actually go on an adventure. But regardless, looks like James is going to fire off a quick Disfigure here on the Priest of the Forgotten Gods. Here's Overgrown Tomb, and enters the battlefield tapped. Of course, James is in a similarly awkward position because if he goes to fire off his Swift End Murderous Rider, at any point here, Brad can just sacrifice the target to the Witch's Oven, and then James won't be able to cast the Murderous Rider half of it. So James definitely in kind of an awkward position with the mix of the Lucky Clover and the Witch's Oven in play. But looks like Brad's just going to go ahead and pick back up his Priest of the Forgotten Gods, and then pass the turn back over to James. Witch's Cottage, unfortunately entering the battlefield tapped. Doesn't allow him to do that for himself. Here's Temple of Malady for James. Gonna take a scry. Looks like he's thinking about it. It'll stay on top. Send the turn back over to Brad. Brad's got plenty of action in his hand, but not a crazy fast clock. James still at 16 life. Going down to 14 now. Here is that Priest of the Forgotten Gods, and here comes Order of Midnight. This ought to be enough to prompt the Swift End at end of turn. So James is going to Swift End both of these. Brad's going to sacrifice the one that is targeted by the actual Murderous Rider Swift End, not the one that's targeted by the token. So that to make sure that the Murderous Rider ends up in the graveyard and is not actually on an adventure, James will only take 2 damage because of that, because only one of the Swift Ends resolves. So nice 2 points to life there that he'll end up gaining, and Brad will make himself a food. I think James has an Order of Midnight in his hand, so strangely enough, the graveyard is a fine place for this Murderous Rider to be. You don't see him end up there too frequently, but this one looks alright. There's another Order of Midnight off the top, along with Temple of Malady. I expect that we'll see the Foulmire Knight just get played here from James. Indeed we do, and it'll presumably just block something, and then hopefully go ahead and get brought back that and the Murderous Rider with the Order of Midnight. And you can see the definite power of these Golgari Adventure decks here when you start doing things like this, where it feels like James could just go forever right now. He's got so many cards that he can just keep churning through his deck, keep picking up all of those creatures. And it does feel like there's kind of a clock on this game, admittedly, because Brad does have an Ethereal Absolution in his hand, which is a super powerful card in this matchup, as most of James's creatures are only 1 power, or are only 1 toughness, so Ethereal Absolution kind of just outright kills them. But here we see James doing the plays we mentioned. Here comes Foulmire Knight and Murderous Rider back to hand Of course, the Murderous Rider never died, so it doesn't get put back onto... Or it does not get put back into its owner's library. And looks like James is just going to go ahead and lose another 2 life, draw another 2 cards. Not a particularly fast clock on the field right now, with this Foulmire Knight doing a good job of brick walling this Midnight Reaper. Of course, if Brad has an answer to the Foulmire Knight, then James is going to be down to 3 life, which suddenly gets very scary. But if he doesn't, then, well, James is going to be feeling all right here. So here comes Gutter Bones. He's going to go ahead and sacrifice the Gutter Bones to the Witch's Oven. He's going to make a food and lose 1 life and draw a card. So Brad kind of just digging for lands here, I believe. So he's going to offer the trade now. Still digging for lands. He has found a swamp now. And here comes Seraph of the Scales. So Seraph of the Scales looks pretty good on this board. Of course, James's deck does have a definite problem dealing with flying. So we'll see if he finds a way to be able to get out of this one. This one looks pretty tough. A lot of the cards in his hand deal him damage, and he's only at 6 life. So unless he finds a way to gain some of this life back, he's going to be between a rock and a hard place. He's got a bunch of adventures in his hand and all the value in the world, but that does not save him if his life total is under this much immediate duress. Let's see what James elects to do. Here comes 4 mana. Looks like he's going to go ahead and cast Questing Beast. I assume that we're going to be offering a trade here, but I think I'll be surprised if Brad takes it. I think Brad's probably just going to say okay and take the 4. So looks like, surprisingly enough, Brad actually will allow the trade to happen. He's going to go ahead and get his 2 1/1 white spirit tokens from Afterlife. So not the end of the world here. He does still have 2 power, but is a significant downgrade from the 4 power he had before. Let's see what else James has got going on. Here comes Order of Midnight. It's now going to pick up the Questing Beast and the Foulmire Knight once again. And here comes Murderous Rider just as a 2/3 with lifelink. I like this play a lot from James. Just cast your Murderous Rider. We need to gain some life. Our life total's under quite a bit of pressure. So I definitely a big fan of this option. Notably, if Brad had hit that land there, he would have ended up with these same 4 power he would have had before because of the Ethereal Absolution. So it makes enough sense to me. All right, here comes an attack for 1 from Brad, and then he's just going to send the turn back, holding up 3 mana. Strange only attacking for 1 there. It looks like he's going to want to block the Murderous Rider with a token and then sacrifice it to the Witch's Oven. Makes quite a bit of sense to me. Here comes Questing Beast, and here's an attack for 6. So Swift End's going to take out the Questing Beast, and then I believe we'll see Brad block and sack his token in order to avoid the lifelink. But it looks like no, Brad just went ahead and took it. I'm a little curious as to why this 1/1 hung around on defense then. If we weren't going to block sack to prevent lifelink, then I'm not certain what our actual plan was here. All right, Swift End going to take out the... I mean, this must be targeting the Priest of the Forgotten Gods and the 1/1 token. Now Brad gets to decide if he wants to just let James take 2 damage in order to allow the Murderous Rider to get into the Exile Zone. Oh, both copies are targeting Priest of the Forgotten Gods. Okay, thank you, production. That's definitely interesting. So now Brad's deciding if he wants to allow James to take 2 damage or end up with food. So regardless, the Murderous Rider would not be going into the Adventure Zone. So that's definitely interesting. Another no land here from Brad means that Ethereal Absolution's still quite a ways away. Questing Beast doing a pretty damn good job of playing attack and defense here. Here comes Midnight Reaper. Brad's really just trying to set up for lethal if he finds a way to get that lethal off of this Ethereal Absolution. And looks like here's the attack for 2 in the air. It's going to put James down to 4. Excuse me. 4 is is a low enough life total that if Brad does the block sack in front of the murderous rider this turn with the oven and probably the cat, then James will die to the ethereal absolution. Oh, but that's one hell of a draw. Casualties of war. All right, let's see what James decides are the targets now. So now Brad will not be able to block and sack the cat in order to fog the lifelink from James. That's a very big deal, actually. So Brad's going to go ahead and make a food with the oven in response to casualties of war. He's going to draw a card and lose a life. And then the Midnight Reaper will die and the land will die. He'll draw a card and lose a life. So now we are way far away from this ethereal absolution. It's just not going to happen, as a matter of fact, this game. Brad does get to draw 2 cards off of the exchange, so he is probably feeling all right about that, but James, as per usual, just kind of happily fogging away these 2/1/1 spirits as he just continues on attacking with his 2/3 lifelinker. So that is not a legal block, I do not believe. Assuming that I am seeing that card correctly. So it looks like Brad is just going to go ahead and block the Foulmire Knight. Oh, that's an Edgewall Innkeeper on the bottom of the screen. Excellent. Okay. So here come some more flying threats, and now we've seen the game pretty swiftly swing away from Brad. Of course, the Edgewall Innkeepers can't block, so Brad's still in a position where if he can find a way to clear out 1 point of damage this turn, he's going to be able to find lethal, but I'm not certain that he has it right now. All right, here is attacks for 2, James down to 1. Brad has a swift end in his hand, so he's probably going to be swift ending this murderous rider. Ooh, Smitten Swordmaster's quite a good draw here from James. That's going to allow him to gain quite a bit more life back. So here comes Vraska, Golgari Queen. We'll see what she wants to do. Pretty interesting choice here with the Vraska Golgari Queen, what we're supposed to do. I think I lean towards just sacrificing one of my tapped lands to draw a card. We have 6 untapped mana. We have essentially 4 mana worth of spells to cast. There's a lot of spells on our deck that are going to be really good to hit here, and down-ticking on a token doesn't actually really save our life in any meaningful capacity. So I think I enjoy plus sacrifice a tapped land here. That's my 2 cents. Of course, I can see both players' hands, so definitely affects that. James agrees with my decision. He's going to draw a card. I didn't quite catch what that was. Oh, it's Questing Beasts. Oh boy. Questing Beasts is pretty good. All right. Edgewall Innkeeper here from James. Now I expect that we're going to go ahead and cast this Curry Favor. I think that now's a good time for Curry Favor. It will likely prompt Brad to swift end to deal with the Murderous Rider if we know that that's happening, and then that will give us a little bit of extra info on what we need to be doing to try and live. Looks like James is tapping the mana for that. He agrees. Curry Favor. Brad's going to swift end the Murderous Rider in response. And so now James is stuck at 2 life, facing down 2 power and flyers. Here comes Questing Beast, but I don't think that that's going to be good enough. I think that James is going to die to these 2 power flyers, if I am correct. Or to these 2 power and flyers. And here comes... Oh, excuse me. James is at 4, not that. But it looks like James is going to swift end. Brad's going to swift end his own cat for lethal. That's sick. All right. Well, pretty stellar finish to that match, as Brad probably could have just attacked and James would have been dead either way, but swift end my cat is certainly a way sweeter way to finish that game. So props to Brad there for a nice 2-0 over James. pretty fun matches, actually. I thoroughly enjoyed that last match. Those were sweet. I felt like James was very, very close to stabilizing and turning the corner in both of those games, and just barely missed on being able to do it from just a slightly too small of a life total. And Brad definitely had these swift ends when he needed them to be able to deal with edge-walling keepers and questing beasts alike. So props to Brad for taking that one down. And with that, I would like to talk to you guys a little bit about Scoot Mob. Scoot Mob is Paradise Games' very brand new competitive Magic the Gathering team. So Scoot Mob is going to be traveling all around the state, playing in all of the events. The Scoot Mob team is going to the face-to-face open tomorrow in Victoria, or excuse me, tomorrow in Vancouver. It's just a little south of Vancouver, I believe. And we're going to be hitting up all the PTQs, all of the GPs, and traveling to events. We are really excited about it. I am a member of the Scoot Mob, and if you are interested in checking out the Scoot Mob, go ahead and check out @MobScoot on Twitter. We have a Discord server, so if you guys are interested in joining the Discord, you can go ahead and just follow the Twitter. You should be able to find the link there, and we're pretty active on the Discord server if you guys want to talk to us about it or anything like that. We're all on the Discord quite frequently, so thank you a bunch to Paradise for supporting this Scoot Mob team. I'm really looking forward to it, seeing all the things we can do. We've got just a huge amount of incredibly talented players on this roster, and I'm really excited to be working with all of them. I'm really excited and honored to be a part of it myself. And I think that Scoot Mob's gonna do really big things in the future. So I'm really excited for Scoot Mob. We've got multiple players queued for the first players tour here in Phoenix very soon, and hopefully we'll get a few more by the time that rolls around. So anyways, I would just like to bring that up really quick there, and you'll be seeing more Scoot Mob. I'm sure you'll see a bunch of pictures all over social media. And we've got our jerseys on the way and everything, really going the whole 9 yards with this thing, really taking it very seriously. We're really putting a lot of work into it, and we're really hoping that it turns out well. So really excited. Yeah, pretty much. I said really about 100 times, but I really am super excited about it. So I'm glad that it's really finally coming together and all that. So with that, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will be back on Monday with some Modern. So 6:30 p.m. Pacific time on Monday for Modern. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been Alex from Paradise Games. I'm going to leave you guys with some hot damn scandal. I'll see you all on Monday.